William Will Blackwood was a handsome and imposing man, the owner of Blackwood Holdings, a conglomerate of construction and real estate investment firms. His presence radiated power, from the impeccable cut of his suits to the steady gaze that seemed to calculate the value of everything around him. Married for years, he had built not just an empire of concrete and steel, but also a family. He had 5 children, but his wife, the light of his life, died tragically in a car accident, leaving him alone to raise the children and manage a void that seemed too vast to fill. They were 2 boys and 3 girls, one of whom, Isabel, was a teenager who had recently become a storm of rebellion, bringing even more challenges to the millionaire's already chaotic daily life. The situation was spiraling out of control. Business meetings were interrupted by calls from school. Multi-million-dollar contracts were signed with his mind worried about his youngest son's fever. More than once, Will had to leave an important presentation to pick up one of his children who had gotten into a fight at school or to comfort them from nightmares at night. He slept an average of 4 hours a night, always with his phone by his bed, waiting for the next emergency. His once perfectly dark hair began to show gray streaks at his temples. Deep dark circles under his eyes betrayed sleepless nights, and his smile, which once lit up any room, had become rare and forced. His mother, Mrs. Eleanor, a woman of refined features and a firm demeanor, watched her son's decline with a heavy heart. She decided to intervene. She could no longer bear to see her son suffocated by responsibilities, trying to be a father, mother, and CEO all at once. He was reluctant to admit he needed help, to hire a nanny, insisting he could handle everything himself, that it would be a betrayal of his late wife's memory to let another woman care for his children. But Mrs. Eleanor knew her son was on the verge of a collapse, so she took it upon herself to hire an experienced professional. That's how Maya entered the family's life. Young, simple, and humble, she lived in a tight-knit, lively neighborhood where everyone knew each other by name and doors were always open. The daughter of a carpenter with calloused hands and a stay-at-home mom with a sweet smile, Maya always had a special affection for children, a gift for soothing cries and inventing games. Since she was little, she had cared for her nieces and nephews, the neighbors' kids, organized street games, and was known in the neighborhood as the girl with a way with little ones. Hardworking and determined, she accepted the opportunity with a hope that shone in her eyes, though she knew the challenge would be immense. Her mother, seeing her pack a simple suitcase with her few clothes, held her hands and said, "My daughter, you have a huge heart. Take that with you, and everything will be all right." Upon arriving at the mansion, a giant of marble and glass that seemed to touch the sky, Maya felt a knot in her stomach. The automatic gates opened slowly, revealing a garden as large as her entire neighborhood. Ornamental fountains spouted crystal-clear water, and marble sculptures decorated the paths. She was greeted by Mrs. Eleanor, who welcomed her with a warm smile, but with eyes that analyzed her from head to toe. During the interview, the matriarch was direct, describing the battlefield that awaited the new hire. She made it clear that each child had a distinct and complex personality. One was calm and shy, almost a ghost in his own home, spending hours in his room reading or drawing in silence. Another was a hurricane of energy, incredibly messy, capable of turning an organized room into a war zone in minutes. The middle one was dramatic, turning any minor incident into an opera, crying for hours if someone touched her favorite toy. And finally, the teenager, Isabel, who was going through a rebellious phase that was giving everyone a headache, sneaking out, talking back, locking herself in her room for days. Mrs. Eleanor then called the children to meet Maya, one of the nanny candidates. They entered the room in a line, like little soldiers inspecting a new recruit. Their reaction was one of calculated indifference, a pact of silence led by the eldest. Isabel just stared at her with disdain, a cutting look that said, "You won't last a day," before retreating to her room, slamming the door hard. The sound echoed through the lavish room. The others followed her example, leaving one by one without a word. Mrs. Eleanor sighed, a tired sound that revealed months of lost battles, and announced she had to leave, but assured Maya that her son, Will, was on his way to finish the conversation. As Maya waited, perched on the edge of a sofa that probably cost more than her house, she observed the details around her, expensive paintings on the walls, crystal chandeliers that reflected the afternoon light, marble floors so shiny they looked like mirrors. Everything there breathed luxury, a world completely different from hers. A maid passed by and offered, "Would you like some water, some juice?" The young woman replied, "No, thank you." Then, before leaving, the maid leaned in and said in a low voice, almost a secret, "You're the 5th nanny candidate to come here this week alone." None of them last a minute. These kids are impossible to deal with. One lasted only 3 hours before leaving in tears. Another swore she'd never work with children again. "Good luck, miss. You're going to need it." That first day, in fact, turned into a resounding failure. Guided by their older sister, the messy boy and the dramatic girl staged a spectacular fight. Screams, accusations, and rehearsed crying echoed through the house. The boy purposely pushed his sister, and she fell to the floor feigning terrible pain, moaning as if she had broken every bone. When Maya approached to talk, trying to mediate the conflict with the calm she had learned in her neighborhood, crouching down to be at their level, she felt something cold and sticky run down her head. Isabel, posted at the top of the stairs with a victorious smile, had dumped an entire pitcher of a goopy concoction that looked like an avocado smoothie mixed with green jello on her head. The liquid ran through her hair, down her face, staining her simple clothes. The children burst into cruel laughter, pointing at her and celebrating as if they had just won a war. Maya went home dirty, humiliated, but strangely not defeated. On the crowded bus, people stared at her oddly because of the green stain on her clothes and the smell of avocado. She held her head high, thinking of the sad eyes behind all that mischief. Will, upon learning what happened when he got home that night, felt anger and helplessness take over. He grounded the children, his normally calm and imposing voice sounding like thunder. "You're all going to drive me crazy. How am I supposed to hire a nanny if you scare them all away? Do you think I enjoy seeing you act like savages? Your mother would be so disappointed in you." At the mention of their mother, Isabel felt a pang in her chest, but kept her face hard, crossing her arms in defiance. To everyone's surprise, especially Will's, the next morning, bright and early, Maya appeared at the mansion's door, clean, with her hair tied in a neat bun and the same determination in her eyes. Will received her at the door, speechless, completely surprised. He apologized, embarrassed by his children's behavior, his voice heavy with shame. She simply smiled and said, "It's okay. I can handle this. I've cared for difficult children before. And look, deep down, they're not bad. They're just in pain." The conversation flowed naturally, and Will found himself venting about his difficulties, about how much he missed his wife, about his fear of failing as a father, about the nights he woke up sweating from nightmares where he lost his children too. He spoke about how guilty he felt for not being able to handle everything, for being absent at school meetings, for not knowing how to comb his daughter's hair or talk about teenage problems. He looked at this simple young woman and saw a strength he hadn't found in anyone else, a light that had gone out in his life since his wife had passed. "I think you're the ideal person," he said finally. He hired her that day. "You can start tomorrow. I'll give you their schedule, the list of what they can eat, the allergies some of them have, school times, practices, therapies, music lessons anyway. It's a lot, but I trust you." Maya smiled, accepting the challenge with the courage of someone who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. The next morning, Maya began her work. While Will woke up and got ready, the sound of the shower muffling the house's silence, Maya was already in the kitchen, reading the paper with the children's entire schedule. It was an immense list: ballet, swimming, therapy, piano lessons, judo, English. Each child had a different routine, overlapping schedules, locations scattered across the city. The maid, the same one from the day before, approached with a cup of coffee. "Well, they wake up at 6. At 7, they go to school. You get them ready and wait here for the driver. Isabel's school is in the afternoon. Keep an eye on her, because that girl is more trouble than all the other kids combined. She's run away from home 3 times, you know? Once she spent the whole night at a friend's house without telling anyone. Nearly scared her father to death." Maya smiled and said, "I can imagine." Maya did her job with almost saintly patience. She had to endure rudeness, slam doors, and looks of contempt. There were days she found her things hidden, her phone stuffed in the toilet, her clothes stained with paint. But she didn't give up. Only one of the boys, the shyest one, respected her, watching her from afar with curiosity. His name was Ryan. He was 8, and sometimes he would leave little drawings under her door, drawings of flowers and hearts, as if it were his silent way of saying thank you for staying. After work, exhausted, Maya would tell her parents about the children and the messes they made. Her mother, while mending a sock, said, "That poor father, having to run a business and look after 5 children alone. It must be so difficult." Her father, sanding a piece of wood, added, "These rich people think money solves everything, but in the end, What a child needs is love and attention. Maya, looking at the ceiling of her simple room, the peeling walls and the old fan spinning slowly, replied, "You're right, Mom, but I'm going to try to change things in that house. I know I can." One day, when all the children were home, a tense silence hanging in the air, Maya called them into the main living room. "Do you want to have some real fun?" she asked with a sparkle in her eyes. Isabel, lying on the couch with her phone, replied without looking up from the screen, "We don't need you to tell us what to do." Maya walked over to her and, with a gentle move, took the phone from her hand. "From now on, your phones will be put away. You'll only use them in the afternoon for a few hours. After that, you'll study and play. The kids in my neighborhood play outside. They run, climb trees, play ball in the street until it gets dark. You just lie on the couch. That's so boring. You don't even talk to each other, each in your own little world." "That's not a life." The children complained, screamed, got angry. It was a true rebellion. Isabel tried to snatch her phone back. The younger ones cried and threw tantrums. But Maya stood firm, putting all the devices in a locked box. To break the ice, she took them to the movies, something they hadn't done in months. They chose an adventure film, and Maya bought popcorn for everyone, letting them pick the sizes and flavors. Afterward, they all walked around the mall, where she bought them ice cream, letting them choose the flavors and toppings. For the first time in a long time, the children laughed together, making jokes about the movie and smearing their faces with ice cream. But Isabel always seemed to be in a bad mood, a wall of indifference around her, keeping her distance and responding only in monosyllables. It was night when Maya talked to Will before leaving. She told him about Isabel's behavior, about how the girl seemed to carry an invisible weight on her shoulders. The father, his gaze lost on the window where the moon was beginning to appear, replied, "This teenage phase is so hard to handle, and she misses her mother immensely. I found out she was bullied at school because she was the only one who didn't have her mother at a Mother's Day party. The other mothers formed a group, and Isabel sat alone in a corner. She came home crying, and I didn't know what to do, what to say. On top of that, she blames me for my late wife's death. She was gone in a car accident. I was driving that day, and a drunk driver hit our car. I tried to swerve, but I couldn't. I survived, but she didn't, and Isabel was in the back seat. She saw everything." His voice broke, the pain still raw, his eyes welling up. Maya listened in silence, her heart aching for this broken family, feeling a tear run down her own face. She went home and thought to herself, "This girl actually needs a different kind of attention. She needs to feel seen, heard, loved. I'm going to try to help her. I'm going to show her she deserves to be happy again." Over time, Maya began to attend Isabel's school meetings in place of her father, who was always tied up with business trips. Maya went to the school plays, even when Isabel had a small role as a tree in the background, and she would applaud with genuine enthusiasm, shouting, "You were amazing!" When the girl passed by, she showed interest in listening to the teenager, in knowing about her favorite music, her deepest fears, her hidden angers. She would stay up late talking with her, without judgment, just listening. One day, Isabel, surprised by this genuine attention that not even her own family gave her, asked, "Don't you think I'm dramatic or annoying? Adults usually don't listen to us. They think everything is just a phase, that we don't have real problems." Maya sat beside her on the messy bed, moving aside some scattered clothes, and said, "I know it can be a complicated phase, but not everything is just drama. You have feelings, and those feelings are real and valid. You have every right to be sad, angry, confused. Losing your mother wasn't easy, and no one here is judging you for it. But their true bond formed when..." One day, while picking Isabel up from school, Maya saw from a distance some students picking on her, pushing her against a wall and laughing cruelly. She heard them call her orphan, weirdo, the girl without a mom. Maya's blood boiled. She approached with firm steps, her eyes shining with controlled fury, and said in a voice that allowed no argument, "Listen up. If you don't stop bothering my girl, I will personally deal with each of you. And I'll tell your parents everything you do here. I'll be at the school gate every single day watching you. Understood?" Frightened by this determined woman, the boys quickly backed away, muttering apologies. Isabel laughed, a genuine laugh for the first time in months, feeling a wave of gratitude. "Wow, you scared them off. No one's ever done that for me before." Later, when it was time for the nanny to leave, the girl said, almost in an embarrassed whisper, "Thanks, Maya, for real." Her father watched the scene from his office window, not understanding his daughter's sudden joy, but feeling a glimmer of hope in his chest. Slowly, the children adapted to the nanny, but this was because Maya was patient and endured many tantrums, rebellions, and screams. Instead of shouting back or giving up like the others, she remained patient, counted to 3, took a deep breath, and sought to address the root of their pain, the loss of their mother. She organized nights of stories about their mom, asking their father to share good memories, happy moments. She created a photo album for each child with pictures of their mother they could keep. She taught them it was normal to miss her, that it was normal to cry, that their mother would always be in their hearts. But while she was healing the wounds of that family, a love story was about to be born, and it was something very unexpected. Maya took advantage of a holiday weekend and the fact that the kids would be home to invite Will and the children to a block party in her neighborhood. It was a party with typical Mexican food, lots of dancing, colors and joy, live music, and people of all ages celebrating together. Will hesitated at first, worried about how the children would react to an environment so different from the luxury they were used to. But Maya insisted, it will be good for them to see how other people live, how it's possible to be happy without so much money. Will accepted the invitation. I'd like to thank you for your patience with my children, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. I was disoriented, lost in a sea of responsibilities. And for me, as a man, there are issues I don't know how to discuss with Isabel. Girl things, body changes, feelings. But thank God you showed up. And so much has changed these past few months. My house has laughter and life again. I don't know how to thank you. With a shy smile, Maya said, I know it's hard for you to be in charge of everything alone. It must be complicated to carry so much weight. But these children aren't bad. They're just children who are suffering. And I was quite a troublemaker as a child. So I understand them perfectly. Will went with the children to the party and met Maya's parents. Simple and welcoming people who received them with warm hugs and genuine smiles. Maya's mother prepared homemade tamales, tacos and enchiladas, and her father offered fresh drinks. Chatting animatedly with Will about carpentry and construction, finding common ground despite their very different realities. The children soon joined others to play running barefoot on the pavement, playing ball, playing hide and seek among the colorful houses. And Isabel interacted with other girls her age, finally looking like a normal teenager, laughing loudly and taking pictures together. The party went on into the night, filled with joy, the sound of lively music filling the air, party lights strung between the houses creating a magical atmosphere. Then, a more upbeat song came on and everyone danced. Maya called to Will, come dance with us. Don't be shy. I'm terrible at dancing, he said, laughing awkwardly and scratching the back of his neck. I was never good at it. My wife always complained. It doesn't matter. No one's judging here, she replied, pulling him by the hand with force and determination. At first, he was shy and clumsy, stepping on his own feet and hers, but he let himself be carried away by the contagious joy of the atmosphere, by the engaging rhythm of the Mexican music. Suddenly, he looked around, worried. Where are the kids? And Isabel? Maya smiled. They went to the inflatable pool my dad set up in the backyard. Can you believe it? But don't worry, my parents are watching them. And Isabel is sitting with her friends eating churros and gossiping. Everything's fine. During the dance, one of Maya's aunts, noticing the chemistry between the two, put on a slow romantic song to give them a little push. Maya and Will danced together for the first time, their bodies closer. And when they looked into each other's eyes, Will seeing his reflection in her pupils, something different hung in the air, an electricity that silenced the noise of the party around them, as if the world had stopped spinning in that moment. The party continued late into the night when Will finally said, checking his watch and seeing it was past 2 a.m, Kids, time to go home. It's very late. The little ones protested in chorus. Oh no! We want to stay a little longer. Please, Dad, let us. We never have this much fun. Maya's mother laughed, saying, Why don't you spend the night here? I have some new mattresses a relative gave me. You can sleep in the living room. Our living room is spacious and well ventilated. It would be an honor to have you. Will hesitated, thinking of the empty mansion waiting for them. But seeing the genuine joy on his children's faces, something he hadn't seen in a long time, he accepted emotionally. All right, we'll stay. Thank you for your hospitality. After everyone was settled on the mattresses in the living room, light blankets over them, and the children's breathing growing slower and deeper as the neighborhood fell silent, Maya and Will stayed on the front porch under the yellowish light of a flickering street lamp. Between laughter and relaxed conversation about their childhoods, old dreams, and future plans, the mood became more intimate. Suddenly, Will moved closer and with a delicate touch, caressed Maya's face, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw. She felt her heart beat faster, her legs growing weak. And there, in that quiet dawn, while the children slept and the world seemed to have stopped just for them, the two lost themselves in a soft, passionate kiss, a kiss that sealed something new and frightening. After the kiss on the porch, Maya felt her heart race, but fear washed over her like a cold wave. Reality hit her like a bucket of ice water. He was her boss, a powerful millionaire, owner of an empire, and she was just the nanny, a simple girl from the neighborhood who had barely finished high school. What could he possibly want with her besides a fleeting affair? She pulled away quickly, muttering with a trembling voice, "I should get some sleep." "Good night." Will, surprised by her abrupt reaction, stood still, watching her disappear down the dark hallway. He tried to convince himself that the kiss had just been an impulse, born from the loneliness he'd felt since losing his wife and the magical moment of the party, but something inside him knew otherwise. He knew that kiss meant much more. In the following days, the tension was palpable in the mansion's air. Maya tried to act naturally, focusing on the children and her daily tasks, but the stolen glances between her and Will betrayed the growing feeling they both tried to hide. He would watch her discreetly as she played with the boys, admiring her patience and dedication. She felt his gaze on her and had to fight not to blush. The second kiss happened unexpectedly. After a long and exhausting day with the children, where everything that could go wrong did, Will offered her a ride home, saying the driver was off and he would take her himself. The drive was silent, but it was a silence charged with unsaid words, furtive glances, hands that almost touched on the gear shift. The sexual tension was almost tangible inside the luxury car when the car stopped in front of her simple house. A stark contrast to the imported vehicle, Maya unbuckled her seatbelt, ready to leave and end this moment of sweet torture. But Will gently held her arm, his warm fingers on her skin. "Wait," he murmured, his gaze fixed on hers, intense and vulnerable. "I can't pretend anymore that nothing is happening. I think about you all the time. I love you, Maya. I know it's crazy. I know we're from different worlds. But I can't deny what I feel." Her heart nearly leaped out of her chest before he gently pulled her into a deep, sincere kiss, one that sealed the silent promise their eyes had been making for days. She got out of the car, beaming, her face lit by a smile she couldn't hide, floating to her front door. But it wouldn't all be smooth sailing. A few days later, while Maya was playing with the children in the sunny garden, the mansion's doorbell rang, a shrill sound that broke the harmony of the perfect afternoon. The maid went to answer, and seconds later announced in a strange voice, "Mr. Blackwood, you have a visitor." He appeared in the living room and came face to face with a figure from his past, Caroline Belmont, elegant as ever, wearing a sophisticated navy blue dress that hugged her body perfectly, expensive jewelry glittering on her neck and wrists, and wearing a confident smile on her red-painted lips. She was a family friend from childhood. Caroline had always had a veiled interest in Will, and now that he was widowed and vulnerable, she was determined to win him over at any cost, and she wouldn't let an insignificant nanny get in her way. "Caroline," Will said, surprised but polite as always. "What are you doing here? It's been a while." She walked towards him with smooth, calculated steps, embracing him a little too intimately, pressing her body against his and letting her expensive perfume envelop him. "I've missed you, Will. It's been so long. I decided to visit and see how you're handling everything. After all, it's not easy taking care of 5 children alone. It must be exhausting," she said with a malicious glint that didn't reach her cold eyes. As they talked, Maya watched from a distance through the window, a growing discomfort settling in her stomach. It was clear that Caroline was there with ulterior motives, from the way she touched his arm to how she laughed a little too loudly at his jokes. Caroline soon noticed Maya's presence and, with a forced, condescending smile, approached like a predator nearing its prey. "And you must be the nanny, right?" she said in a slightly patronizing tone, looking Maya up and down with barely disguised contempt. Maya maintained her posture, lifting her chin, and replied calmly, "Yes, I'm Maya." Caroline smiled, but her eyes held a look of pure challenge. "It must be complicated taking care of so many difficult children. I hope you're managing. After all, I've heard that several nannies have passed through here before you." she said, leaving a poisonous insinuation in the air that Maya was no better than the others. From that day on, Maya realized her presence in that house would no longer go unnoticed. Caroline was willing to do anything to drive her away from Will and the children's lives, and the war was just beginning. The following days were marked by a cold war, a mix of tension and suspicion. Caroline began showing up at the mansion frequently, always with a different excuse, bringing sweets for the children, offering help with paperwork, inviting Will to business dinners. Maya felt the weight of Caroline's eyes watching her every move, every interaction with Will, but she tried to focus on the children and her work, ignoring the rival's threatening presence. However, the situation got out of control. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, when everything seemed harmonious and the children were playing happily in the yard, Maya decided to make a healthy juice for them, a fruit mix they loved after playing outside. She was always mindful of their dietary restrictions, especially with little Mason, only 5 years old, who had a severe peanut allergy that could be fatal. She organized everything with meticulous care, washing the fruits, cutting them into pieces, and leaving the juice in the kitchen while she quickly went to the bathroom. It was in this brief moment of absence that Caroline Belmont struck like a snake waiting for the right moment. Taking advantage of Maya's absence and checking that no one was looking, she discreetly took a handful of ground peanuts she had found in the snack cabinet and mixed it well into the pitcher of juice, stirring with a spoon to ensure no one would notice the change in color or texture. Her heart beat fast, but she kept her face calm, a satisfied smile on her lips. Minutes later, Maya returned and served the colorful glasses to the children, suspecting nothing. The kids were excited, drinking their juice and playing, laughing loudly and telling stories, but it wasn't long before Mason started to feel sick. His little face quickly turned red and swollen. His eyes watered, and he brought his small hands to his neck, struggling to breathe, making a high-pitched, terrifying sound that cut through the air like a knife. "Oh my God, Mason!" Maya screamed in panic, not knowing what to do, her world collapsing in seconds. Caroline, seeing the scene unfold exactly as planned, quickly approached and said with false calm and concern, "He's choking! We have to get him to the hospital now, quick!" Without a second thought, Caroline scooped the boy into her arms and ran to the car. With a desperate Maya right behind her, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it would explode. At the hospital, Mason received first aid just in time, an epinephrine injection that saved his life, and was out of danger after a few tense hours in the emergency room. Maya, however, felt terrible, guilt gnawing at her from the inside, trying to understand how it could have happened when she had been so careful. When they returned to the mansion as dusk fell, Will was waiting in the living room, anxious and pale, pacing back and forth. With Mason asleep in his arms after the medication, he looked directly at Maya with an indecipherable expression. Before she could say anything, Caroline stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Will's shoulder. It was horrible, Will. The boy drank the juice and immediately had an allergic reaction. It was terrifying to see his little face turning purple. "I'm just glad I was nearby to help get him to the hospital in time," she said, casting a veiled look of disapproval at Maya, as if she were guilty of gross negligence. With a heavy heart and tears burning her eyes, Maya tried to explain, "Will, I don't know how this happened. I was extremely careful with everything. I checked the ingredients 3 times. I would never put anything in there that could harm Mason. You know how much I love these children." Will took a deep breath, looking at his sleeping son in his arms, so small and fragile. "Maya, I'll put Mason to bed and then we'll talk," he said, leaving the room without a clear expression on his face, leaving a heavy silence behind. Later, when he came back down the stairs slowly, he seemed calmer, but tired. "Look, accidents happen. I know you're careful, but maybe you were distracted today. The important thing is that Mason was saved in time thanks to Caroline. But please, pay more attention next time, okay? The children depend on you," he said with a gentle smile, trying to ease the tension, but still distant. Maya, still shaken and feeling she had let down the man she loved, replied softly, "I will, I promise. It will never happen again." But peace was far from returning, and Maya sensed that Caroline was plotting something bigger. The next day, while Maya was playing with the children in the sunny garden, trying to forget the trauma of the previous day, Caroline devised another cruel plan. She saw that Maya had put the family dog, a golden retriever named Rex, in his doghouse at the back of the yard and had properly latched the gate. Seizing a moment of distraction when Maya went inside to get water, Caroline discreetly unlatched the doghouse and opened the main gate leading to the busy street, leaving it wide open. Minutes later, the dog shot out, running towards the dangerous street, barking happily, unaware of the danger. The children started screaming and crying, scared and desperate. Rex ran away. He's running away. A car is going to hit him. One of the girls screamed in panic. Maya ran to the front of the house, panic rising and her legs nearly failing her, seeing the beloved dog running towards traffic. The younger children were in tears as she tried to call the dog back, shouting his name. Will appeared at the gate, coming from his office, trying to understand the commotion. But I swear I closed his gate. I always double check. Maya said, almost crying, her voice desperate. Caroline appeared behind them, feigning perfect concern. Poor Maya, you seem so distracted lately. First Mason, now Rex. Are you okay? She murmured in a low tone, just loud enough for Maya to hear, a cruel smile on her lips. Will managed to catch the dog with the help of a neighbor who saw him running, but he began to grow suspicious of Maya's successive mistakes, a shadow of doubt planted in his mind. And so, without anyone knowing the truth, Caroline continued to sabotage Maya, determined to drive her away from Will and the children at any cost, regardless of the consequences. But the worst, what made Will seriously argue with Maya, was when Caroline put her most cruel and calculated plan into action. That morning at breakfast, Caroline announced casually while buttering a piece of toast, "Well, my vacation is almost over. Soon I'll be back to my routine in New York, but I wanted to enjoy these last few days with you all, especially with you, Will," she said, flashing a subtle smile and glancing at Maya out of the corner of her eye with superiority. Will smiled politely, but his gaze seemed lost in confused thoughts. Maya, in the background organizing the children's breakfast, listened to the conversation without saying a word, just watching with a knot in her stomach. It was in this tense atmosphere that Caroline devised her riskiest and most dangerous plan. The next day, a rainy Thursday, while Maya took the younger boys to the mall's indoor playground so they could play despite the bad weather, Caroline stayed at the mansion with Isabel, who was grounded for not doing her schoolwork for the third time in a row. Caroline saw the perfect opportunity for her macabre plan. She went to Isabel's room, bringing a glass of juice and feigning motherly sympathy. "You know, Izzy, I know how boring it is to be cooped up in here while everyone else is out having fun. Life is too short to waste like this. Why don't you go out for a bit and enjoy yourself?" she whispered with a snake-like voice. Isabel looked at her, suspicious of the sudden kindness. "I can't. My dad will get mad at me again. And Maya, too." Caroline then smiled, playing her final card with malice. "Don't worry, I'll help you. In fact, I'll cover for you if anyone asks. How about going to the pool for some sun? Go on, wait for me there and I'll take you wherever you want later. How about the mall?" "We can buy that outfit you wanted," she said with a fake smile. The teenager hesitated, the desire for freedom fighting with her sense of duty, but she gave in to temptation after a few minutes. Caroline led Isabel to the pool area, discreetly removed the safety cover that should always be stretched over the water, and left Isabel there alone near the slippery edge. "I'll just get my car keys and my purse. Wait here a few minutes, okay?" Caroline said before walking away, smiling behind her facade, her plan unfolding perfectly. Alone and bored, Isabel sat near the wet edge, playing with the cold water with her toes. Suddenly, she felt a strong, calculated push on her back, a force that threw her completely off balance. Not being a strong swimmer and panicking, she fell into the deep end of the pool and began to struggle desperately, swallowing water, her screams muffled by the water engulfing her. Her arms flailed frantically at the surface, trying to grab onto something, anything, Maya, who was just returning from the park with the boys and was still at the gate closing the van, heard the muffled, desperate screams from the backyard. "Help! Somebody help me!" Without a second thought, leaving the boys in the van, she ran to the yard and saw Isabel drowning, her head disappearing under the water. She dove into the pool fully clothed, the icy water cutting her skin, and with superhuman effort managed to pull the heavy teenager to the edge. Isabel coughed hard, crying from fear, shaking violently. At that moment, Will came running from the house, alarmed by the noise and the children's screams. Seeing his daughter soaked, trembling, pale, and almost lifeless in Maya's arms, his expression shifted from concern to pure fury. "What happened here?" he yelled, his voice echoing through the garden. Maya, still breathless and coughing up water, replied, "We were at the mall. When I got here, I heard screams and saw Isabel drowning in the pool. I don't know how she got out of her room." Caroline came running from the house, feigning perfect shock and surprise, even dramatically putting a hand to her mouth. "I saw everything from the window, Will. Maya left Isabel alone out here before she left with the boys. I thought she was watching Izzy. I thought it was safe to leave them alone for a minute. I never imagined this would happen. Will was silent for a second that felt like an eternity, his face a mask of disappointment and anger. You left my daughter alone by the pool and went out with the other boys? How could you be so irresponsible? He asked in a frigid voice, staring at Maya with eyes that no longer recognized the woman he loved. She felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. Will, it wasn't like that. She was grounded in her room. I would never take her near the pool alone. Will cut her off, his voice as cold as ice. Enough, Maya. I trusted you with the most precious thing I have. And now it almost ends in tragedy. I can't risk my children's lives for anything in this world. I think it's best you take some time off. I need to think about all of this, about whether you're really the right person to take care of them. His words were like a punch to the gut. Maya left the mansion heartbroken, soaked, humiliated, not understanding how everything had gone so wrong, how the man who claimed to love her could so easily believe the lies. Carolyn watched it all from the upper balcony, holding a glass of red wine, savoring her cruel victory, a satisfied smile on her wicked face. However, when Isabel finally woke up a few hours later, fully recovered from the traumatic scare but still shaken, she looked for her father and said, "Where's Maya? And where's Caroline?" Her father, still worried and confused, sitting on the edge of her bed, replied with a tired voice, "Carolyn went home. And as for Maya, well, after what happened today, I think I'm gonna have to fire her. I can't take the risk." "No, Dad." "Why? She saved me," Isabel protested, sitting up quickly in bed, her eyes wide. "It's decided. I'm sorry, but I have to protect you," he replied firmly, but with a heavy heart. Then Isabel told him everything, the words tumbling out, fast and desperate. "Dad, you have to listen to me. It was Caroline's fault, not Maya's. She told me to leave my room, that I could go wherever I wanted, that she would cover for me, and we would go to the mall later. She told me to wait for her by the pool. Then I felt someone push me hard into the water, but when I managed to look back, I didn't see anyone. The person was already gone. It had to be her who tried to kill me, Dad. She wanted to drown me." Will listened to his daughter's detailed account, and the pieces finally began to fit together in his mind like a dark puzzle. He thought for a few minutes in silence and said, "You know, now that I think about it, after she came to this house for a visit, things started to get very strange. All these accidents started when she showed up." The girl then said, with sincere tears in her eyes, "Dad, Maya would never hurt us. She truly loves us. I was so annoying at the beginning, so mean to her. I threw that disgusting stuff on her, and yet she put up with me. She defended me from those jerks at school. She went to my place. Bring her back. Ask for her forgiveness. I already see her as a mother, and I don't want her to leave our lives." Determined and feeling the weight of his guilt, her father said, "Daughter, tomorrow morning, Daddy will fix this, okay? I'll bring Maya back, and I'll settle things with Caroline." After going to Maya's house in the colorful neighborhood the next morning, he called out, knocking on the worn wooden door, but no one was home. An elderly neighbor, watering his plants, informed him. They went to a relative's birthday party out of town and won't be back until tomorrow afternoon. Will thanked him politely and returned home, anxiety and regret eating at him, counting the hours. He parked the car in front of the mansion, his mind still reeling from Isabel's confession and the realization of how he had been manipulated. He felt terrible, a complete fool for being unfair to Maya, for believing Carolyn's lies, for hurting the woman he loved and who had saved his daughter. As he got out of the car, he saw Carolyn standing at the front door, leaning against a column, impeccably dressed in an emerald green dress and wearing a fake smile on her painted lips. "Will, darling, so good to see you. I was worried after everything that happened yesterday and decided to stop by to see how things are, if Isabel is okay," she said, trying to sound sweet and maternal, but the falseness was obvious. But Will, his expression more serious than she had ever seen, did not match her tone. He crossed his arms and looked directly into her cold eyes. "Worried?" he repeated with heavy sarcasm. "You know, Caroline, something isn't adding up in this whole story. In fact, a lot of things don't add up." Caroline, still trying to maintain her composure but feeling the ground shift beneath her feet, forced a nervous smile. "What are you talking about, Will?" she asked, feigning innocent confusion. Will took a step closer, invading her personal space, his voice low but dangerous. "Isabel told me everything. She said you encouraged her to leave her room, promised to take her to the mall, and left her alone at the pool without supervision. More than that, she felt someone push her into the water. It was you who tried to drown my daughter. Damn it, Caroline, we were childhood friends. How could you do this?" Carolyn's face turned pale as paper, the blood draining from her cheeks, but she quickly tried to compose herself, laughing nervously. Will, you can't possibly believe everything a rebellious and troubled teenager says. You yourself said she's difficult. That girl is rude, rebellious, a fake, a liar. She's probably making all this up for attention. But Will was no longer fooled. Don't play innocent, Caroline. And don't talk about my daughter like that. Don't you dare. And it's not just Isabel's word either. The gardener, Mr. Manuel, saw you with her near the pool before the accident. He told me this morning he saw you taking the safety cover off the pool and leaving her there alone before going inside. And there's more. The story about Mason's juice that caused the allergic reaction. The maid told me you were alone in the kitchen just before the incident. I wonder if you had a hand in that too. And the dog that ran away? You were at the house that day too. Caroline's eyes widened, realizing she was cornered, finally with no mask to wear. I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. Will took another step, his imposing height intimidating her. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You put me at risk, you put my children's lives at risk, and you tried to destroy someone who only brought happiness and peace to my home for the first time in years. You manipulated everything, sabotaged Maya, almost killed my daughter out of sick jealousy. Our friendship, if there ever was one left, ends here and now. And I will personally make sure you never come near my family again. If you show up here again, I'll call the police and sue you for attempted murder. Now get in your car, get off my property, and be on your way. Goodbye, Caroline. May God have mercy on you. The next day, as the sun rose bringing new hope, Will called Maya as soon as he heard she was back, his tone repentant and vulnerable. Maya, please, I need to talk to you. The kids, Isabel. They all miss you so much. Actually, I miss you. Can we talk? I need to explain everything. Maya took a deep breath, fighting back tears before responding with dignity. I don't run from problems, Will. I never have. We can talk. When they met in the mansion's garden, where it had all begun months ago, Will didn't hesitate. He approached her from behind as she looked at the flowers and hugged her with desperate tenderness, his face buried in her hair. I know everything now. It was Carolyn who did it all the sabotage, all the accidents. She confessed when I confronted her. Forgive me for doubting you. I think I was a blind fool. Forgive me for not defending you, for believing her lies instead of trusting my heart. Maya, feeling the warmth of his embrace and his sincere regret, turned to face him and replied with tears streaming down her face. No, you weren't a fool. You were just a protective father who wanted to protect the children he loves above all else. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I would have done the same. Smiling through his teary eyes, Will confessed, the house without you became chaos again, but worse, it became a place of mourning. The kids ask for you every day. Isabel cries in her room. I really want you to come back, not just as a nanny, but as part of our family. For the kids, and above all for me, because I love you. What do you think? Maya's eyes filled with tears of pure joy. I've missed you all so much too, so much. I missed the laughter, the messes, even the tantrums. I missed being loved. And so, Maya returned to the house that very day. The children hugged her with indescribable joy, laughing and crying at the same time, jumping around her as if she were a hero who had returned from war. Even Rex the dog barked happily and jumped on her. Seizing the perfect moment with the whole family gathered, Will knelt before her with a passionate and emotional smile, taking a small box from his pocket. Maya, will you stay here forever? Marry me? I can also give your parents a new, comfortable house so they can be close to us. Maya smiled, moved to her soul, but said, my parents would never want to leave their neighborhood. That's their world, and they're happy there. But I really want to stay with you all forever. She paused emotionally, holding his hands, and added, you know, my dream has always been to get married on the beach, barefoot in the sand, with the sound of the waves. Will didn't waste any time or spare any expense. He made Maya's dream come true exactly as she had always imagined, and the wedding took place on a beautiful paradise-like beach, with the sound of the sea as the soundtrack to the most important I do of their lives. The children running barefoot in the sand, white flowers decorating everything, and Maya's parents present and crying with happiness. The couple began their life together, growing more in love each day, rediscovering their love every day. The children were radiant and finally at peace with the new mother that destiny, patience, and true love had given them. And sometime later, their happiness became even more complete when Maya became pregnant with a beautiful baby girl, completing the family perfectly and bringing even more love to that house that was once just luxury and loneliness. but now overflowed with love, laughter, and hope for the future. Video outro. Hey dreamers! What an emotional journey for Will and Maya. Their story shows us that no matter how deep the scars of loss and loneliness are, love has the power to heal and build a new family. We saw the patience and strength of a humble woman who, with a giant heart, faced mistrust and malice, never losing hope of bringing joy and being loved. And we saw the journey of a man who, lost in grief and the responsibilities of an empire, dared to open his heart and his home to see the true essence of care and love. They remind us that a family isn't just made of blood ties, but of patience, affection, and the courage to start over. Now it's your turn. What was the most powerful moment for you? Maya's resilience in returning after being humiliated on the first day? The scene where she defends Isabel from the bullies at school? Or that first kiss on the porch during the neighborhood party that changed everything? Let us know in the comments. Share this story so more people can believe in the power of second chances and suggest topics for our next video. A big hug and see you next time, where we'll prove once again that love is the most revolutionary force in the universe.